Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the Singing Buddha podcast. Today I'm going to be talking about the art of visualization, a powerful creative tool. Now, visualization is something that I consciously use on a regular basis. And I started visualizing many years ago after reading a lot of books which talked about the subject. And at first I didn't realise how powerful it was until I started seeing actual tangible results. Now, the funny thing is that we constantly see results of visualizations that we do on a regular basis. However, we're not always conscious of the fact that we're visualizing. So whether we're visualizing something positive or negative, good, bad, things that we don't want to happen, things that we do want to happen, they all play a big part on our subconscious, because our deep subconscious beliefs are what actually shapes our lives. Not often the things that we think shapes our lives, but the deep beliefs that we have that often we've hidden or covered up with many stories that we can often tell ourselves. So visualization is such a powerful tool. And many people use it to help them achieve their goals, to help them focus in life, and to help propel them forward. Lots of athletes use it, lots of creatives use it, lots of people in business use it. So over the years, scientists have been looking into this, and there was much thought that we were influenced more by our external environment, and that was what had more control over us and our actions. Whereas what's come to light now is that thought has a lot of influence, or most influence, over and creates our external environment and also our experience. The fact that we are thinking and we are moulding something and creating something out of our imagination. Now, for some people this might sound far-fetched, but if you think about it, everything that you can see around you, if you just look around the room that you're in right now, every single thing that you can see, other than plants or animals, but everything else that you can see in the room around you, those things have been thought of by someone. So you can imagine someone lying awake in bed at night just thinking about, how do I get that screw to work on the chair to make sure that it holds that part up? Or how do I get that part of the microphone to work? Or how do I do this? Or how do I do that? These questions that are constantly asked by people who create or invent things. But we are all creators, all of us. So the reason that I use visualization is because for me, it helps me change some of my learnt beliefs, because what it does is, if you think about something often enough, you start to believe it. Or if you are told something often enough, you start to believe it. Now, that doesn't matter if you've told yourself that particular thing, or if someone else has told you that particular thing. It is the fact that it is being told to you that has an influence on you and your subconscious. And over time, your beliefs will change to believe the auto-suggestion that you or someone else is giving yourself. So back in 2007, sort of 7 and 8, when I was first starting the project of Lazy Hammock and started writing my first Lazy Hammock album. I mean, I'd done a lot of music before that for many years, but this was a particular project that I started on, which came about through meditating, actually, and the name came through meditating. And I had a real picture in my mind, and I knew what I wanted to achieve with that. And when I first started, I used to picture and imagine and visualize that within 1 year I would have one of my tracks on a chill out compilation album. Bearing in mind, I hadn't even released any tracks at that point. I'd written some tracks, and way back then the tracks went on MySpace. I don't know if you remember that, but the site MySpace, and I had a lot of good feedback, but I hadn't really actually released anything. But my vision was that I was going to be on a compilation album within a year. And at that point I hadn't even started writing an album. I just started writing some tunes, 3 tunes for Lazy Hammock. So I pictured this a lot. This is what's going to happen. And then I also started picturing that I wanted to do some DJing out in Ibiza. Also, didn't know how that was going to happen. I'd never even DJ'd before. It wasn't something that I did, hadn't done it before, but I felt that as a producer it was something that I needed to learn. And I had a vision. It was this vision that I had. So I wrote these things down. It's very powerful writing your intentions down. And I wrote these things down, and I used to think about these things every day. And one of the things that I'd read about visualization was that it was important that when you were thinking about the thing that you wanted to do, or how you wanted to be, or the project you wanted to complete, the important thing was to believe that you weren't watching yourself like on a television screen. You were actually playing the part of you in real time, in your imagination. So, for example, if you have a creative pursuit in mind or a project that you want to start, that maybe, for example, you want to write a play. So what you would do is you picture the end result. What is the result that you would have, that you know that your visualization had come into fruition? So you might picture that the play is all written and bound, and that you are looking at it and holding it. And the other important part of this is the feeling. It's the energy that you are putting into your visualization. So it's the feeling. So how does it feel? How does it feel when you finish writing your play and you're holding that bound piece of work in your hands? Or is it that you want to get some sort of, deal with it on TV? So then your end result might be that you're shaking hands with someone in a TV department, head of a TV department, who is taking on your play. So it's this end result that you want. And what happens with this end result is it's really powerful because it drives you as well. It gives you, it helps you when you're blocked, and it opens up the bigger picture. Now, what I've found when I get stuck with projects or something, say for example, when I'm writing an album, I rarely get stuck with the material to write. It's more, sometimes I just have a block when I'm it's supposed to be doing something and I start procrastinating and then I put it off, it's because of something that I'm doing that's immediate that I'm not enjoying. Okay, so for example, I might have recorded lots of vocals for one of my tracks and may have left it one night and then know that the next day I've got to go back and maybe the vocals hadn't sounded as tip-top as I wanted them, so I have to go back and re-record all of them again. Now that to me is quite a tedious job. I might enjoy what I do, but some of the things around what I do are tedious. So I could often put up a block with something like that and I was like, oh, I don't really want to do it, but I know that I need to do it. Now, what helps me and propels me forward is actually knowing that at some point this song or this album will be finished. So I start picturing the end result when it's going to be released out there, you know, whether it's on Spotify or Apple or any of these download or streaming sites where my label releases it to. I think of the end result and I think of the finished result, the cover, the track out there in the world. And looking at the bigger picture like that, that helps me move forward. So going back to the actual visions that I had of the things that I wanted to achieve, getting a track on a compilation at the end of the year, DJing in Ibiza. And the other thing was I didn't have anyone to mix or master my album. I didn't know anyone that could do that. I knew people, but at the time I didn't have the money to pay them. So I needed to find a way. So it's very interesting. So what I kept doing was I just kept picturing the end results of the things I wanted, that I would have these tunes on these compilations albums, that I would be out in Ibiza DJing. Didn't know how it was going to happen, and that doesn't matter. It's like, for example, if you're driving from London to Scotland or anywhere in the world, I've heard this analogy before, that if you're driving somewhere, you can't see the whole way in front of you. You can only see as far as the headlights reach. But that's enough if you know the direction that you're going in. And I knew the direction I was going in, so I wasn't really worried about the next step. Once you have committed to doing something and you set your intention and you start and you take action and you start moving forward, the path will open up in front of you. It just does. This is how people move forwards, because quite often when we see things that people are doing that we want to do ourselves or we want to achieve ourselves, and we just think, but I don't know how to do it. How am I going to do that? I have no idea of how I'm going to do that. All I say to you is just start. Just do one thing. And then something will open up to you, or someone will show you something, or someone will tell you something. And with that, you then take the next step. And then something else will open up. Don't think you need to know how to do something from beginning to end to be able to do it. Because if we did, we would never do anything new. Because we don't know. We don't know new things. We only know what we know until we know something else. So, we take action and we look at the bigger picture and the end result. So visualization is supposed to be most powerful either last thing at night, when you're really sleepy, in that sort of sleep state, or first thing in the morning. Again, when you've just woken up and you're really sleepy, you're not quite sure what's happening where you are, and you just wake up and before you're fully aware. And in that time is the time to start visualizing. So what you need to do is, I suggest that you lie with your eyes closed, or you just, stay with your eyes closed, but obviously you're awake. And you start to picture what it is that you want to happen, or what result is it that you want to come into fruition. Or what project do you want to finish? Or what house do you want to live in? Or what place do you want to visit? It can be used for anything, absolutely anything. And again, this isn't magic. This is about embedding a thought and a feeling into your subconscious. So your subconscious, in turn, starts to recognize that this is how you feel or what you want, and in turn starts to open up the circumstances and opportunities that can start to move towards it and bring this into your life, or these things into your life. Because your subconscious doesn't know the difference between reality and fantasy. It has no idea. And there have been tests done on this on athletes. Athletes that, for example, say someone who runs in the 100 meters, that they visualized winning, and they've had the test done where they're sort of hooked up to machines, and when they visualized running and winning the race, all their muscles that would have fired off naturally if they were physically running that race still fired off, even though they were just imagining it. So, lie with your eyes closed, picture what you want, and then get in the feeling of it. So if it's for someone wanting to sing on a particular stage, or as I said, maybe write a play, or write an album, or act on a stage, or anything it is you want to do, picture it, actually do the thing that it is you want to do, and then feel the feeling you will feel if that situation were to occur. How would it feel for you? What is the feeling? Generate that feeling. That is the energy that you need to generate. Now, when I was doing this, and I still do it, on most days I visualize. I consciously visualize. And I've had many people say to me, oh, you're doing this now, you're doing that now, or oh, you've done that, or you've done this. How come you've been so productive? And it's a combination of things. It's one, it's my own personal drive. 2, visualization. 3, belief in myself and my pursuits. And 4, a desire to have a positive impact on my own life and the life of other people who come into contact with my work or my music. So it's a number of things, but I still, as I said earlier, I still encounter all the difficulties that everyone else encounters. The procrastination, the not feeling like it on some days, the blocks, the creative blocks that we have. When you get into this feeling and you realize that you can choose what you think, you might start to use this tool on a more regular basis or a regular basis. Because humans have thousands and thousands of thoughts every day. But generally, we tend to think the same thoughts over and over and over, as we did the day before and the day before that and the day before that. And we just kind of go onto autopilot and we just think these thoughts, and we get into this state of mind and we get stuck, a bit like a scratched record. And we just get stuck in this spot of thinking the same thing, feeling the same feelings, going through the same motions, having the same relationships, meeting the same problems and difficulties, all of these things, and they just keep going round and round. And we ask ourselves, why me? Why this? Why does it always happen to me? Why does this keep going on? Why am I always in this situation? Why? But we don't always know how to move forward out of a situation, and there's obviously many ways to move forward from situations, but they're not all easy, and it takes time to get to a point in our lives where we're often ready to move forward or move away from certain things that we may be going through. And some we may feel that we might not be able to get away from, which is really difficult. Which is why the power of visualization and the art of visualization is such an incredible one and such an incredible tool, because it's something that has no impact or effect on anyone around you. You can do it at any time you want. You can go to that place, that end result that you hope to see in your life, whatever it is. It could be about people, relationships, a project, a goal, anything. But go there as often as you can, because the more you embed this into your subconscious, the more chance it has of becoming your reality. So, by the end of that year, when I started writing Lazy Hammock tracks, I had written an album. I had found someone to mix and master it. Kept putting this out over in my thoughts. I kept putting it out in my visualizations. And at some point, someone from MySpace, who I was friends with on MySpace, said, "Oh, I'm friends with someone else on MySpace. Why don't you contact them?" I contacted this guy, and he had heard of me from a song that I'd put out years before, and he'd been a fan of mine. He said, "I'd love to work with you. I'd love to mix and master your stuff. Let's do a deal. Don't need payment right now," because that was the issue. I didn't have any money at that point. He said, "No, if you sing on some of my tracks and I do the mixing and mastering for you, we can do it that way." Anyway, this all happened, and we became great friends. And he ended up mixing the first few of my albums, and then I started mixing them with him, and then I started mixing the last ones on my own, and then he mastered all of my albums up to, I think, the last one that I released. So, I worked with this man for a good 10-12 years, and I was so surprised how that came about, because it was like it came out of thin air. I mean, what were the odds? Anyway, I finished the album, and I sent it off to many labels then, because although there was opportunity to self-release, which at first I did do with the album, at that time people were still kind of getting involved with labels. So then sent off the tracks to some labels, and then one label said, "Yeah, we'll put it on a compilation." And I was just blown away, like, what? That's the thing, you put this out there, and then when it comes back to you, sometimes you could be really shocked. Now I'm not so shocked when things come back, because I know that my intention is there, that this is what I intend to happen. So I expect it to come back now. Whereas before I was like, it was just like a test, like I wasn't sure, I didn't know. Now I expect it to come back. If it's right for my life, and I always say that when putting things out there, if this is right for my life, it will come back as I've put it out there, or even better, in a way that I couldn't possibly imagine. I then contacted some more labels, and to cut a long story short, I eventually got a couple of tracks on a compilation album, and then that label signed me. And then since then, and this was where I said about, I think during that year as well, I'd put it up to, from wanting to be on one compilation to, if I could be on 50 compilations, that would be like just the most amazing dream come true. I mean, that was just really pushing it out there to the universe, going, yes, you know, if I could be on 50. Now, fast forward to 13 years later, my tracks are on over 2,500 compilation albums, including Ministry of Sound, Sony BMG, Head Candy, EMI, and of course the label that signed me, Deventer Music. And on TV, advertisements played in shops, hotels, all around the world. Now, I know it's a combination of different things. I know that. However, it was the thing about compilation albums that was the thing that I was putting out there more than anything. Anyway, what also happened was, out of the blue, I got a message from someone saying, I'm a female DJ and I'm doing some gigs in Ibiza for a company and they're looking for another female DJ. By this time I'd started DJing and I'd got a few DJ jobs around London and everything, and I was playing in about 3 venues a week. And I get this email saying, we're looking for another female DJ in Ibiza to play on these boat trips for business people from Ibiza to Formentera. And again, I was just like, what? I couldn't believe it. And it honestly came absolutely out of the blue. And so then for the next 3-4 years, I was out in Ibiza in the summer doing these incredible DJ sets in incredible surroundings for these business people. I remember the first time I went out, and on the way back from Formentera, I was playing a chill out track and a few tears started rolling down my cheeks, because in that moment I remembered what I had put out there to the universe, and I was actually living it. And I had the sun beating down on me. I had a drink in my hand, I was playing a tune, and I was getting paid for it. I had so much gratitude in that moment. That is the power of visualization. Now, the same way that we think about things that are happening in our lives that we don't like, and what we do is we contemplate and we think about them. And that's always good in terms of thinking about what we need to change in our lives and maybe how we can change it. But often we don't go to that next step of thinking how we can change something. We stay in the first step and just get stuck and think about the situation we're in and how awful it is. But we don't put our minds out there to where we want to be. What are we going to do about this? Picturing that end result. And so we have to choose that place that we operate from. We have to choose, are we operating from a place that we're in currently, which might be the effect of many causes made before, or the effect of different circumstances? Or are we going to make a new cause in this moment now, which will have new effects to come, even though the moment might be difficult right now? But are we going to do something different in this moment to change what is going to come? And that's what I'm asking you to think about and to maybe implement into your lives. That right now you may be in a situation, or you may not have the career that you're enjoying right now, or the life that you want right now. But just by visualizing, it will start to change things, to start turning things around once it is embedded deeply enough into your subconscious. For example, quite often when I do masterclasses, I give this analogy of 2 young boys, and I say, imagine that there's two young dyslexic boys, and they're both about 5 or 6 years old, and one of them goes home on Mother's Day with a card that he's written for his mum, and he's had real difficulty in writing the card because he's dyslexic, but he's tried really hard to just do a really beautiful card. And he goes to his mum and he gives the card to his mum, and all his mum can do is see the mistakes that he's made and tells him about the mistakes he's made, and that he needs to go away and do her another card without any mistakes because she's not going to put that one up on the wall. Now imagine how that child must feel, and imagine how low his self-esteem must be, because this is a child that has this reaction from his mother on a regular basis. Now imagine another child, similar age, 5 or 6, dyslexic as well, makes a Mother's Day card, comes home and says, Mum, I've made you a Mother's Day card. And the mother takes it, and still it's got spelling mistakes as well. The mother takes it and says, this is such a beautiful card. Thank you so much for this. I absolutely love it. And you know what means the most to me is that I can see how much work you put into this, because I know that you find writing difficult, and that's why it means the world to me. I'm going to put it up on the wall. Come and give me a hug. Imagine how that child will feel. Imagine those bricks of confidence being built in that moment. Now, if you look at the two children, one has got all the odds stacked against him, and one has got all the odds in his favour. Now, it doesn't mean that just because someone's been put down all their life that they'll never make anything of themselves. Of course it doesn't. In fact, a lot of the time, quite the opposite is true. But you have a bigger mountain to climb. Now, those words that first mother said to her child, often we speak words to ourselves where we put ourselves down. Words to ourselves that embed in our subconscious, so we start to believe that we aren't good enough. And what the power of visualization does is it helps us embed other things into our subconscious. So even if we've had a mountain to climb in our lives, or are still climbing that mountain, we can still picture another outcome, a different narrative, another feeling, circumstances that we'd rather be in. Once they are embedded, they start to move towards that place. So, thinking of the little boy, the first one, who has the low self-esteem, he's not got low self-esteem because he's not of any worth. He's got low self-esteem because he was told something repetitively. So it's about counteracting those things. And I'll talk more about this in a future episode when we talk about overcoming the negative voice. So it's about this, what is put into us. Now, with visualization, what's fantastic is that we can take the personal responsibility to not only choose what we are thinking, but to design or shape or create our lives from that tool that we have. Because we're shaping our lives all the time, in every moment, in every thought that we have, that we think, that is shaping our life. What we think about most tends to play out most in our lives. And I'm sure you've noticed that. If you really think about what are you thinking on a daily basis, what do you lie and mull over in your head? Are those things repeating? Put something else in. Whatever you plant in your mind will grow, whatever. So you have the choice to put in there what you want to grow. Because if you tell yourself or someone else something negative often enough, they will start to believe it. But if you tell yourself a different story, your subconscious can take on that and start moving towards it. The art of visualization is very powerful. So I'm really hoping that you will start to use this in shaping and creating your lives and your creative projects, because your mind is a very powerful tool, and we have the ability to change things once our beliefs are changed, and we have the ability to change our subconscious beliefs. Thank you for listening. See you in episode 4. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please follow, like, subscribe, or even write a review. If you have any topics or questions that you'd like discussed or answered in future episodes, please send for consideration to thesingingbuddhapodcast@gmail.com. You've been listening to the Singing Buddha Podcast.